Good morning. Hello, everyone. Get your coffee. I got mine. It's another overcast day, which I like because I like to run around. I don't know why. It's just people aren't as many people out, and I'm going early as soon as I get done talking to y'all, which I do want to talk to y'all this morning and tell y'all what's going on. Things are always going on. And I have a special prayer request because my daughter, Karen, one of the twins, texted me this morning and says she is vomiting, she's throwing up, she's dizzy, she can't hardly, she says, Mama, I am so sick, pray. So James and I held hands and prayed for Karen. She's in South Carolina. There is no distance in prayer, people. So, dear Lord Jesus, as we agree all together to touch Karen this morning, and y'all agree with me, in Jesus' name we pray, okay? All right, this is March, and I got this book. You know I do a lot of research, and I like to research. And this one says, Jesus listens. And yes, he does. And for March, it has different months that you can go by, and this is March. So this is a scripture in here, which is good. John 14:6. In the NIV, it says, Jesus said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And that's just the way it is, kiddos. He's the only one that rose from the dead. So this morning I called Dr. Hartman, the dentist that I went to a few years ago, and he did me a favor. He pulled a tooth that needed pulling real quick, and he got her done. And then I just never did go back. Again, I got somebody else to clean my teeth because my insurance wouldn't pay, but my insurance don't pay anything anyway. We can pay it. God will help us. He always does. And when I got out of bed this morning, I thought, you know, being 91 and able to get up and feel good and go walking and get your exercise and then get in your car and go running, and they're having gas on sale down on the corner, and I'm going to fill one of my cars up 40 cents off a gallon all day long. So I got to get down there. And then I'm going, and y'all like to know what I'm doing. And I just go on and on. You know how I am. So hello all y'all. I really am from the South. I was raised down in the mountains of Mink Holler, Smith Holler, North Carolina, up in the mountains when Daddy worked for the Skyline Drive. But my watch, who James insists I have one because if you fall, you can get help right away. And this one, what happened, I've had this in a good long while, and I got a refurbished one. And so the battery is getting so, it only works till about 4 o'clock of the day, and that's been going on a couple of months. And my daughter, Karen, the boss, she's bossy about like Kimberly, who is really bossy. You know, I have 3 daughters, and the baby daughter, she's just like me, and I'm a little bossy. I suggest people to do things, but they should get it done. Anyway, the battery only works till about 4 o'clock, and a lot of times James goes and does stuff after I'm gone. And I fell about a year ago in the kitchen, which I have told you about. I tripped over a cat in the dark. I was running through, and I walk too fast sometimes because I get her done. I get a lot of things done. Anyway, I fell, and he said, I got to have Karen. All the kids said, you got to have one, Mom. So I'm going to Best Buy this morning and pick me up a new one, and I won't worry about it anymore. And then but when I fell, I thought I had killed myself. I fell so hard on my shoulder and my hip that I thought that James was outside. So I'm laying in the floor hollering, James, James. No answer, no answer. So I can't even move for a while. So I just lay there and I said, I guess I am going to live. I guess, did I break something? I don't know. So I rolled over because I was onto my side and to my knees. I finally got to my knees. And I said, well, now, how am I going to get up? Because when I was 90, how in the world do you get up? You know what? When you're 90 years old, you cannot get up. You cannot get up. So what do? I said, well, I got to crawl somewhere. I'm feeling better. I'm not dead. I don't believe my hip is broke. My shoulders feels all right. I don't have a broken arm because I landed right on. So I started to crawl, and I was crawling to the stove because our kitchen and dining room is separate, and the stove was the closest thing I was to. So I started crawling toward the stove. I had got the door down, the oven door down, and I was getting ready to try to push up, because you can push up with your hands and get up like if you have a chair. I didn't have a chair. About that time, number 3 came walking in. He said, what in the world are you doing? I said, well, I fell and I can't get up. And that's what these watches do. Fact is, if you fall, they say, I sense that you have fallen. And this one's not been doing that lately. It's not been doing its job. So I knew it was time for a new one. So I'm going to go pick it up this morning. I know which one I want. And I want a pink band this time, I think. Well, whatever. I like pink. You know, I always wore scarves. So James said, what are you doing? I said, well, I tripped over the cat and I fell and I can't get up. He said, well, here, let me help you up. Give me your hands. So he took my hands, and you cannot pull an old woman up by her hands, an old man or anybody that's old as we are. You can't. I said, honey, that ain't working. That hurts. I said, what you got to do is get me around my waist, and he's 6'3", and he's a big man, and I'm a little woman. And you know what? I wanted to make something straight right now. I don't get everything right in this world, but I get some things wrong. So yesterday I said I weigh 167 pounds. No, it's 157. I am only 2 pounds over 155. That's not so bad, but I want to keep it 155. That's my goal. So I went on my eat less diet, and I had my pork weenie and a piece of dry toast for breakfast. And it said this morning, I was almost 158, and now it's 157.1. It's come down almost a pound, I believe. So I am really 157.1, working toward 155 again. There, I straightened that out. Praise the Lord. I didn't know I said that till after I watched myself to see if I could hear me, and I hadn't talked quite loud enough, and I said, what did you say? Did you? You can't talk to it once it's down. You can, but you don't get no results. I said, I'll make that straight tomorrow. And I told some of my commenters, and Mrs. Peach, Thrifty Living, she says she goes to Tops. But then she said later, I thought maybe there was something not right with that, because, and she was right, I was wrong. Now, I'm big enough to admit when I make mistakes, and I just said it wrong. And I heard it myself with my own ears. So I've been doing some more reading and with books and stuff, and I like stuff like this. And I've got one I've had for a long time that really helped change my life in a way. Because, at times I would get so concerned over the most stupid things, which I realized later they were stupid. And so this book came out that said, don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff. And this guy, Dr. Richard Carlson PhD, wrote this book a few years ago, and he's dead and gone. But you know what? I researched what happened to him last night, because I was re-looking through some of his writings that I have read before about things that we get so upset about that you don't even remember it 2 days later, or you get mad at somebody, and if you let it go like a Christian's supposed to do, you let it go, and this book helped me to not let people rain on my parade all the time, if you know what I mean. Not let them get me down, but just let it go. I have to do that some even this day and age, because even your darling husband can upset you sometimes. And then I say to myself, it's not the end of the world. It's just small stuff. It won't matter next week. It won't matter today. Let it go. Don't let him rain on my parade. I'm parading. And y'all just keep on parading like me. But I did the research last night on what happened to Dr. Richard Carlson. And it was sad. He had written another book that he was getting ready to get, he was doing promo on it, and I never read that one. But anyway, he was flying to another meeting on his new book that he was doing, and he had a brain aneurysm. He was 45 years old. And so I grieved him right then and there. I said, oh no, that's too bad. How sad that when he was so young and full of promise, and God took him home at 45 years of age. You don't know when God's going to call you home, folks. You really don't. And I called my sister-in-law, who my brother passed away, and she's in assisted living now. And she's only 74 years old. See, Aubrey, her husband, and we called him Abe, was younger than me by quite a bit. He was 10 years younger than I was. And so he's been gone about a year. And so I was 90, so he was 80 years old. And I thought that was too young to go. But take a deep breath and just keep on chatting. And that's what I do, you know. So I made an appointment. But I was talking to Janet. Let me finish this. And she is doing very well. She has a son. And so he insisted that she has to move out. She lives out in the country. No real nearby neighbors. Nobody to check on her. And he lives in another state. And he cannot move here because of his job and work. And he's been there for years. And he's not a spring chicken anymore either. I mean, he's 50-something. He didn't have any children, so she don't have any grandchildren. No one around here. I live 20 miles from her, and I don't go out and check on her. Nobody. So he said, Mom, you got to get somewhere where I don't worry about you all the time. I can't come check on you. So she looked around, and in a town not too far away, Salem, Indiana, she found this really nice nursing home. And she went, well, it's not a nursing home. It's an assisted living home. But they help you they feed you. I mean, and she has like a little apartment, a living room, a bedroom, bath, and a kitchenette. And she don't cook because they cook there. She says she don't cook anymore, and she kind of likes that. But her son, Joe, Joseph, I think that's his name. Anyway, I don't know him very well. I only met him one time or twice, and saw him when he was a little boy. He was at my brother's funeral a year ago. But Janet said I wasn't making it too good by myself, and he insisted that I get somewhere. And so now somebody already wants to buy her home, her house, so that's going to be taken care of. And that's a relief off of her mind. She's not got everything moved yet, but she says, I'm doing good. She loved to cook, and me and her used to talk cooking all the time, and I told her I enjoyed talking to her. So we had a long conversation, and she told me how her son said, Mom, I got to put you somewhere where I can know you are taken care of. And I said, well, you're not only doing, she said, well, you know, I could pass away and I could lay there 2 weeks before anybody would find me. And I was down at the Y yesterday, and today we go every day except Saturday. And they was telling me about this. See, everybody down there knows I'm 91. I broadcast it, and I tell them I'm on YouTube. Subscribe, you know. So, and my subscriptions are doing good. They're holding steady. So they said, you know, she said, this Mary, who I know, and she rides her bicycle in the summertime, and then she walks at the Y, and she's 74 years old. She said, did you know Joe? He was 92. I said, no, I never saw him. She said, well, he always wore a certain kind of shirt. And she said, you would have known. I said, I didn't know him. I never saw him. She said, well, you know, for a few days he didn't come in. And everybody says, does anybody know where Joe is? They said, no, we don't know. So they called, and they went in, the police or whoever, they called it a welfare check to see if he's doing well. And he had been dead for some time because he had no one. And Janet, didn't want that to happen to her. And her son sure didn't want it to happen. he didn't want the shock of that in his system. So anyhow, she's someplace, but Mr. Joe, who I never knew, died all along and by himself. So we don't want to do that. It's better if your children know where you're at and they can give you a decent funeral and keep traditions up and you can do your grieving. That's just the way it is, folks. And I'm 91 and my time is coming. And when it does, it's well taken care of. I prayed for my funeral. When number one died, I paid for my funeral. And the guy said, "What kind of funeral do you want?" I said, "Just do it like you did Buddy's." Now, that's been 40 years ago. But when I married James, I told him, I said, "Honey, I'm 8 years older than you." Now, that's correct, 8 years older. He's only 83. So I said, "You won't have to pay for my funeral. It's paid for. I'm not going to cost you a whole lot there at the end, being as I'm older." I said, "Don't worry about it." And I guess he don't sweat the small things. But he has not made his funeral arrangements. He said, "I'm going to." But you know what he did? His wife passed away after we met at church, and she didn't live very long. I think she was only like 68 or something. I never met her. But anyway, he buried her out in a family. They have a family graveyard over in Kentucky. And so she's buried there. And about 8 years ago, he bought some tombstones, a whole bunch of them, where this tombstone business was going out of business. So he bought a bunch of tombstones, and one of them was real nice. He put that on her grave and had it. He's going to be buried beside her, he said. So he put her name on it, and he buried her out there. I knew him when she passed away, but, I never met her, and we just went to church together. So anyhow, she's buried out there. So, and he put his name right beside it, and he's going to be buried by her. So then the other day he said, "Well, I think I'll be cremated. I don't know what I'm going to do." I said, "It's up to you. I probably won't be here to worry about it." He said, "Well, what about that thing where if you, when you go to the doctor, get your yearly checkup, they say, 'Do you want one of those things that says whether they should let you go or stop?'" I said, "I'm not going to do that." I said, "My kids already know that they won't hold me around, and you won't either." I said, "Pull the plug if it needs it." Because I was in the hospital listening when Buddy was passing away, and there was a family meeting with the doctor, and their father was really, really ill, and they were having a conference. I was in the waiting room, and they were in the waiting room, a kind of small waiting room, and he was talking to the family. He was telling them that there was no hope. What should they do? And I know what my family would do. They would do what I want them to do. Don't let me hang on. Let me go be with Jesus. My brother Aubrey, when he was real sick, and he had a heart attack, and he had exercised and walked a mile, and I don't know if he ate right or not. Probably not. I don't. I eat whatever I feel like, but I'm on one pork weenie and a dry piece of toast for breakfast. I'm still working on it. I may be here till I'm 103. Who knows? I'm working on it. This thing about don't sweat the small stuff, and this one, it really emphasizes keeping a good attitude toward life. And sometimes you have to work at it because you do get down and you do get sad and lonely. But who can help that besides us? I mean, somebody ain't going to come hit us on the head with it, right? So it's up to us. So I'll watch. I tell you what, there's a lot of things I like to read, so I'll read, or I'll watch a National Geographic or something on TV, or I go to the Walmart or Kroger. And did you know my JC's wife, who was my cousin, the one that when I was about 5 or 6 years old, and JC, her husband, was 12, and we were first cousins. And I was down in Smith Holler and visited my grandma and grandpa across the road. They lived across from us when we was living in a little red house down in Smith Holler near Ewan, Virginia. not too far from Middlesboro, Kentucky. Fact is, Buddy and I held a revival at Middlesboro in their church there, Assembly of God in Middlesboro. And you know what? We parked our fifth wheel up there by the church, and we went up there and parked, and then the pastor came up and he said, "Oh my goodness." I said, "What?" He said, "We planted new shrubbery 3 days ago, and it's all gone. Somebody had stole all their church's new shrubbery in Middlesboro, Kentucky." Oh my goodness. To steal from God, from God's people, I couldn't understand it. He couldn't either, but they were gone. So we had a good revival down there. And they got the best places to eat down there in Middlesboro. I still have real relatives that live near there. My sister, my mom's sister, Virgie, has a daughter that lives down there named Carm. And no, that's not her daughter. Oh well, she lives down there nearby, and she talks about them good places to eat down there. And I have other relatives down there, near there. Cousins. I have a cousin on Facebook I've never met that is beautiful. And she got married again recently, and she's not no spring chicken either. Anybody over 60 is not, you're not a spring chicken anymore. So anyway, where was I? I don't know. Oh yeah, keep taking care of yourself and don't sweat the small stuff. A lot of things you worry about, you can't even remember it if you write it. I kept a diary one time, and I would write it down right. I said, "Oh my goodness, why did I worry over that so much? It didn't amount to a thing." And if you just make the best of it. So I have an appointment with Dr. Hartman Monday at 9 o'clock. 9:30. I wrote it down where I can find it. Right here in this book. I was reading this book this morning, so I wrote it down that way because I'm going through it again. And he was only 45 years old. And that's so sad. But life goes on for us who are still here. And we make the best of it. And I had my lonely times. I'll never forget after Floyd passed away, that I was sitting here in the dark by myself in my little apartment. And I've been here for a long time. This is where Buddy and I built an apartment in the rear of our house. So we had to have a place to be when we was off of the evangelistic field. Because I researched it. You don't want to just not have, you don't want to live in that fifth wheel all the time. You want to go home and be home and go to the Kroger and the Walmart. And you know what? They built a Walmart about 3.5 blocks out from me. Well, they were going to put it way out the road, about 2 miles or something. And I told the Lord, I said, I don't like that. Couldn't we get a Walmart closer by? And I couldn't believe it. I mean, you get answers to prayer and you say, really? Did that really happen? Yes, it did. And so I could just run out the wall. And then they built the Aldi's the other side of it, and you can't beat that with a stick. So I've got an Aldi's and a Walmart, and we did have a Kroger. It was a smaller Kroger, but they closed it, so now I have to go over to Charleston Road to get to the Kroger. But I'm going to, I know what I was going to tell you. JC, my cousin, who, when we was down in Smith Holler, he was running around the yard. He had him a BB gun, and I've told this before too, and y'all have heard it, but it just came back to my mind. He said, "I'm going to kill me some birds." And as a 5 or 6 year old, I just was having fits. No. Of course, no way in this world was he going to kill a bird with a BB gun, because they are fast, and he never killed any birds. So JC met this lady, and Carolyn, and we're real good friends, and he passed away about 3 or 4 years ago, and he was 90, and he was tired. He was ready to go. I think when you get older, a lot of times you get ready to go. I've seen people get ready to go. I have prayed with people that were ready to go and had not made it right with the Lord. I remember this one friend I had. And she was a sweet girl, and you know, she ended up with Alzheimer's and passed away at like in her 60s. But her daddy was real ill in the nursing home, and she was a Christian. I mean, bad things happen to Christians all the time too anyway, and that is life. So she said, would y'all go see him? So we went, and Buddy and I prayed with him the sinner's prayer, and he died about a week later. But he gave his heart to the Lord that evening when we went to see him in the hospital. So you just do what you can. And that's why I talk to you all about Jesus, because there is an eternity. But like I say, after Floyd passed away, I was sitting here at this house in the dark, and I was beginning to think my life was over at 70 or 72, something like that. But you know what? I said, I'm going to change this. This is not good, me sitting here in the dark going on like this. I'm going to do something different. Now, other people can do other things, but I had heard about the VFW, that they had music on Friday nights, country music. So I went down there, and I sat down with I asked a girl that I had met one time at the mall, did she know any old man that would want to dance? And I hadn't danced in 45 years, people. She said, yeah, Sonny over there. We made good friends, acquaintances. You know, I don't want a lot of people to come sit down and have tea with me, but it's so nice to sit down with people like that once a week and just visit with them. So you lonely people, get out there, join a club, join a church, get out where people are. Go help somebody. I didn't help nobody but myself when except Sonny. Now, Sonny was tickled to dance with me, and I was tickled he couldn't dance worth anything. But we got up and moved around on the floor. I mean, I didn't even know how to dance, and that's a fact, Jack. So me and Sonny would wheel around the floor, and I did that for 2 or 3 years, going on Friday nights. And then I met Beulah May and Anna Marie. God sent me Anna Marie, and I had 2 good friends, and sometimes the 3 of us would go different places to dance, because they also had it at the American Legion. We'd go out there sometimes. Sometimes we'd go out to Corden. They had a dance place out there where the senior citizens went that had a band, and I got out and I got around, and it was fun. And I took some trips with Anna Marie. We went to Memphis one year, me and her, and I saw Elvis Presley's house, and I was shocked. You know, you would have thought he had a mansion. He had so much money. He had Cadillacs and everything, but that house, it looked like a house that a gypsy would have. The colors were atrocious. I mean, well, I look like a gypsy sometimes. I'll never forget, James and I was parked in a campground, and there was a lot of gypsies in the campground where we was at, and they all have these big fancy trucks at campgrounds, and they'll go from camp to camp, and they say, can we coat your roof? Probably your camper, you know, it'll never rain or leak once we do it. And so, you know what they want to be called when they travel? Now, this is a secret I found out. They are called travelers. They're not called gypsies. They travel, and so they're travelers. So he came around, he made it around to mine, and he said, would you want us to? I said, honey, I'm a traveler too. No, I don't want any, because they would just rip you off, honestly. So when you don't even need it, they would do it whether it needed it or not. They would claim it did. I said, I'm a traveler too. We take care of that. He said, oh, okay. Went on about his business with his big old truck, because unsuspecting people, and they used to work this area around here, stop and ask people if they need a roof fixed somehow or another, or anything they need done, but you had to be careful. You know, I haven't seen them in a few years, but they used to, and they always had beautiful big trucks. And there is a bunch of them over in Louisville. Used to be a whole place where they all lived. All the gypsies lived in their own compound, and a lot of them would go south in the wintertime and work with the circus and things like that. So that's what I remember about the gypsies. One time We went to a church where the pastor himself was an ex-gypsy. He had got saved. Now, a lot of the gypsies up in New Jersey, where we was going, did get saved in the churches there because they were, and the pastor had made friends with a lot of the gypsies. And they came in and got saved, and they are the sweetest people. We just loved them. We made friends with them too. We had good times in New Jersey, and I tell you what, I don't want to go back to New Jersey. My daughter lives there, and that's why we went to New Jersey to the Assembly of God Church that they went, and the pastor booked us. And we had some good revivals up there. But the traffic is awful, and it was awful. One time we was going across a big bridge, and we had a truck that had two tanks on it. And all of a sudden, our truck wasn't running. We had run out of gas on one tank, and we thought we had some in the other, and we switched, and it wouldn't switch. We sat there and prayed, oh God, let that switch, let that switch. It finally switched, and we got our truck started to pull that big old camper off of that bridge. We was dead in the water, but God helped get us out of that one. He has answered so many prayers for us in the time and in the times that I have known. And this apartment that we built, the air conditioning still works, the furnace still works, and the carpeting worked. But James was sure, because it had been flooded a time or two, that it was rotten underneath because it had a foam underneath it. Honey, it was fine. I got new carpeting anyway, though. So that was a plus. God has been so good, children, so y'all walk that path and pray that prayer, and He'll hear you no matter where you're at. And I have said in the past, He will hear you when you're on the potty. And a lot of people hide out in the bathroom anyway and read books. So you just hide out in that bathroom and talk to Jesus. Okay? Walk that path now where Jesus would be pleased with you. Bye-bye.